Oh, no. Almost there.
Good morning and welcome to Dateline New Haven. Washington, D.C. might be in shambles, but folks, the sun's out in New Haven and we're here in one piece. I'm your host, Paul Bass, inviting you to look behind the headlines on the stories that make New Haven tick. The New Haven Republican Party makes New Haven tick, right? Or trying to make New Haven tick? You're going to make New Haven tick without a doubt. Without a doubt.
That's right.
And Tyler Kuhn and Jonathan Wharton of the City GOP are in the WNHH studio right now to help make that happen. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks for
Harry
having us on.
Drost, the studio station manager and bravest man in New Haven, unapologetic Donald Trump supporter. We're live on Facebook Live.
Yep, we're live.
And Jonathan, if you want to share that.
Okay, we'll
We'll
do.
give you a moment to do that.
Okay.
And I want to thank Yale New Haven Hospital for providing support for today's program. You know, Jonathan, actually we discovered, and we didn't know this before, that Facebook Live sends hundreds of new listeners to every show. And that was a total surprise to me. Harry Drost was the one who instituted that here, because I thought, why would anyone want to watch a radio show?
Right.
And it turns out they don't watch the radio show. So you don't have to worry about how you look up there. People at work want to look like they're at work, but they have the window open and they just click on and they listen, but they listen. You know, other people listen to us at 103.5 FM. Some people listen to the live stream on our station. Some people listen to TuneIn Radio app. Some listen later on the podcast. But a chunk of our audience now comes through Facebook Live. So you can go to the New Haven Independent site, you're probably there, or Jonathan Wharton's site today and listen to it. So guys, so the Republican Party.
Yes.
Every time you come in here, and I love when you come, Jonathan, and it's nice to meet you, Tyler. You're the secretary of the party. You're in charge of recruiting candidates.
Yes, sir.
This is a question I always ask Jonathan, and I have a hunch based on the fact that you're in charge of recruiting candidates that you guys might actually start recruiting candidates.
That's the goal. That's the goal. You know, under Chairman Warren, we're really kind of turning the party around, and we're starting to see interest out in the field to really be a substantive party here in New Haven.
I'm going to ask you, it's so close to that mic that you're almost touching it with your lips, but not quite. So Chairman Wharton, is that sort of like Chairman Mao? You have a little red book, Jonathan?
Hardly. Hardly. Not even close.
The reason I ask the question, the reason I'm ribbing you a little bit, is because the Republican Party, I think there's, about 2,000 members in town registered?
It's actually more than that. I think we're close to 4. I think it's...
And so about 4,000 registered Republicans in
4,000,
town.
something like that, yeah.
And what are there, about 48,000 registered Democrats?
Yes.
And then there's, another 15,000?
A lot of independents and affiliated.
Which in fact
a
are
lot.
fair game for you guys, though.
Absolutely.
So Jonathan Wharton, who became the chairman about a year and a half ago,
Yes.
has the mission of reviving a moribund party. And there are a lot of people in town who feel like whether or not they agree with Republicans, there is a need for a 2-party or 3-party city rather than a 1-party city. So people have been cheering you on whether or not they're going to end up voting if you're not. But you haven't yet, because it's asking a lot of people to ask to do this, found a real slate of candidates to run competitive elections. You put a few people on the ballot, but last time I don't think anybody, we had one person running for state rep, but he wasn't really a fielded campaign. He still did his civic duty by being on the ballot and giving another choice.
And we appreciate your having him on the air as well.
Well, we'll put you on every time because we believe in democracy.
Although,
And
Paul, it is worth noting,
Close to the mic,
the
Tyler.
last time around, Ghana in the first ward
Right.
actually came within 17 votes of winning that election.
That's a good point. That's 2 years ago. That's
Ward
Ghana
one.
Eza, the Yale ward, that even though Yale is the People's Republic when it comes to like socialist politics, they came with it. They had to have a recount. It was so close because there was, first of all, your candidate was sort of like a New Haven Republican, a New England Republican, socially, fiscally conservative, genuinely Republican, but not like, Jeff Sessions, Ku Klux Klan type. And there was real desire for democracy at Yale. And people
Yes, there
looked at
was.
the candidate rather than the party.
And if it could be done there, it could be done anywhere, as Frank Sinatra used to say.
Okay, now I see you got a guy who can create his job.
I told you, he's got a great voice. He's
confident,
He's terrific.
you gotta believes it,
And a Dartmouth alum. I mean, he's a brilliant guy.
All right, we're gonna find out more about that in the order. So Tyler, that was a very good point you made that there's the potential to win elections. As we know, it takes a lot of work to win even a ward election. A really hard working candidate can do it, knock at every door. If you spend months and months going to thousands of doors, people have done that.
That's right.
Usually need some people going to help you. Uganda did have a team where you have to write your ones and twos, meaning write down on a list of voters who's most likely to vote for you, get their number, help some people get to the polls if they're not at Yale, because I mean they're famous for that. So the only group that really does that in force in New Haven is Unite Here. The unions at Yale, which have, they successfully right, everyone thinks it's some evil plot, it's not. They do democracy. They get people out who have an agenda, and then they get lots of people come out, identify their voters, and then they basically break into people's bedrooms and drag them to the polls if they don't come, which is how you win elections. And you have such a small army, even though you might have close to 4,000 registered voters, and you think about how many people are actually active in campaigns, you're starting from scratch. You need good candidates, you need people going to work hard. So we've always relied on the Republican Party for the last 30 years to basically try to put some people on the ballot so we have an option, but they haven't really fielded campaigns.
Well, the good news, Paul, is that our fundraisers have been very successful, as you know. We've raised thousands of dollars. We have a lot of support from people outside New Haven, in fact. There are a number of people in Connecticut who are rooting for us in the area. I've been very close with the Milford Committee, for example, the Republican Town Committee there, West Haven as well. Area town committees have been cheering us on and supporting us.
But in local politics, the Koch brothers can't get you there. You got to have people
We're
in
not
New Haven
expecting
for you. But I mean, you
Right.
still got to, and it's great that you have people in Milford who want to give you some bucks,
Sure.
but you got to get people here. You got to get Tyler times 100.
I think it's got to be all the above. I think we have to pull in all our resources. Even our chairman, the state chairman, was at our last meeting on Thursday, and he was out with us. Well, it was like 16 of us afterwards.
J.R.
We had,
Romano.
we had over 40 people show up.
Well,
to that
people
meeting.
can do that. 40
And-
people can make a revolution happen in a city.
And he's cheering us on as much as possible.
So
I
are we
had him
going to
on the
see
show too.
candidates? So now, so this
Well,
is an
that's gonna
odd
be the big
number
question.
year. We have a mayoral candidate. We last had a Republican mayor win an election in 1951.
Mm-hmm.
Is there going to be a mayoral candidate on the ballot?
No, we're not expecting so. For the alders races, we're expecting at least a couple of candidates. I mean, Tyler's been working
Is a
diligently
couple
with the
aiming
committee.
high, Jonathan? Like,
It's
I
a
do
beginning
respect
point.
the challenges you
Sure.
have. I'm not criticizing you. It's not like I'm out there getting people involved in politics. But 30 members of the Board of Aldermen, you have 0.
Right.
You haven't had a mayor since 1951.
Mhm.
You're not going to run anyone for mayor, and you're going to run maybe a couple of people for alder.
We haven't had an alder in a few years as well. But, and as Tyler brought up in Ward 1, clearly that election was very close.
Right.
And so I will offer that, I think at the beginning point, we're starting off with a couple of candidates for now. We've done the fundraising, and we're going to continue doing the fundraising. We've done the platform
When you
as
say
well.
thousands, how much have you raised?
I want to say somewhere in the ballpark of around 5,000-6,000, something like that. And the thing is that
Right, local elections are as much about hitting the ground.
absolutely.
5,000, 6,000 get you some flyers. There's no substitute for getting the people going to
Well,
vote.
for an
votes from
alder's
other
race,
neighbors.
for an alder's race, that's a good
Yeah.
beginning point.
And there is public finance. You
and
guys
we-
going to go for matching dollars?
Depends on who the candidate is and whether they want to push ahead with it. But don't forget, we have another fundraiser, June 29th, as a matter of fact, back at City Point Kitchen.
Well, I couldn't forget because I didn't know in the first place. So tell me
So
about
I
it.
want to at least,
Okay.
mention that we are having another fundraiser like we did last year. And we definitely raised a few $1,000s to that fundraiser. So
So you guys are raising the money.
we're raising the
And
money.
if you have 40,
we have the
if you
interest.
generally have 40 people who get involved in stuff,
Sure.
that is an army actually for local political races outside of mayor, and it actually is respectable for a core of a mayoral campaign to get things started. So you feel like, Jonathan Wharton, if I can accurately summarize, you feel the building blocks are in place to have 2017 not be a year where you suddenly can run a mayor, but that you can actually run, and are we saying you can get elected, some Republicans to the Board of Alders?
I think the interest is there. If not one, maybe two candidates.
I mean, you're only going to run one or two?
And I think we can get a couple at least. I think at minimum we can get a couple candidates. I mean, there's interest. There's interest.
How high
Paul,
are you?
Paul, there's no way we're going to get 30 people to run in every ward.
Can
I
you be
mean,
10?
no, now you're pushing it.
I think, Paul, you bring up a great point. We really are kind of in a rebuilding mode, just like any kind of professional sports team. To Jonathan's credit, I think we got a lot of excitement going on in the local field. We are getting people showing up to the RTC meetings. So if we can
That's
concentrate
Republican Town Committee.
So we can concentrate our resources on 1, 2, couple, maybe 3, 4, 5 races, and maybe even get a couple people on the alder. That's how you start rebuilding a party.
Right, and a lot of people talk about, like I've heard people strategize all the time. Let's say someone wants to run for mayor in 2 years. This year they need to get, but really want like 10 or 15 good alder candidates. But now they win, they run serious campaigns, so you start bringing out the Woodward networks. People have experience on elections.
Right.
What wards are you in so far?
We're in a couple of wards, some of the downtown wards, some, I think the Westville ward, we're looking at Morris Cove. So it's really all over the city.
Anyone
yet?
yet? Name yet? Anyone filed?
No, we haven't announced anyone officially yet. We're still kind of in talks, as you're right. anybody who's going to run has to be fully and truly on board and committed to this race. So we're still kind of walking that through. We're working through with a lot of people, seeing if they're going to have the time, commitment, and resources to put to this race. And I'm thinking at our fundraiser, we'll have people who are going to be able to announce.
So you hope to announce on June 29th.
Absolutely, by the end of June. And the other thing I want to remind you all is that, we've had a number of people step up and join commissions and boards, and you know that.
That's important.
We
You're
got
on the
another
city
former
planning
names.
commission,
Absolutely.
correct?
And Tyler just joined the ethics commission here.
Wait
So
a second. Ethics Commission New Haven. You're like military intelligence.
So for the first time, I think in recent memory, not only is the Board of Ethics fully staffed, but we have a Republican, an Independent, and a Democrat, or possibly two Democrats, but at least we have two parties on the Board of Ethics, which I think is a real good step forward for the city of New Haven.
Yeah, definitely. Have you had any cases come up?
We have. We have had an inquiry. We deliberated like any other
What
Board
was
of
the
Ethics.
What was the case?
I don't know how much I can go into.
You could totally do it. It's not. No, you're a public commission. This part.
It
You
is
guys
a
supposed.
public
You guys supposed to
commission.
bring sunshine to government. Don't start getting secret with your buddies there in the Democratic Party. I'm already tired.
So the case basically was we have, and I guess I could do free advertising for the city. The city provides a program that helps people with down payment assistance. Somebody who works in that office, the Livable City Initiative, I believe is what it's called, wants to apply to one of these loans. She's not involved in applying or the application review process that's done by a third party underwriting committee. So she was just basically wondering, do I have an opportunity to apply for this
Oh, that's
loan?
cool. And what did you decide?
Well, we decided that because it's open to the public, she doesn't have a role in deciding who does and who does not get the loan. We said, no, this would not be a conflict of interest. And while I think this is a fairly straightforward case, I think this is a good first step, again, to having that, like you said, that sunshine, that transparency.
Can I give you a little historical context?
Please do.
1998. That was when they started the Livable City Initiative, and they gave out these kind of loans. And immediately, all the members of the staff were applying for those loans. The mayor's chief of staff, Andre Jackson Brooks, got something like $70,000 no interest forgivable loan for lead paint removal of their house. The director of the Livable City Initiative gave himself a $5,000 grant. They started giving grants to state representatives, alders, and it was so dirty that the New Haven Advocate wrote about it. The FBI came in and shut down City Hall. They couldn't pay bills for a week and took their computers out, and all those people had to be fired.
Right.
Do we want to go down that road again?
Well, I think you raised the point of just how important it is to have both parties on these kind of city commissions.
But now you're both colluding and allowing conflicts of interest.
No.
Jonathan, I think it's horrible. Even the optics, given the history, Livable City Initiative, the city's anti-blight neighborhoods, was formed in 1997 and 1998. It was unable to do its work for 2 years because it started going down that road of inside dealing. It is so, to me, it seems so patently a conflict makes the public to believe, given that history, that you can have people working that department giving themselves loans that so many people are going to want and only a few could be given. I don't see how we could even for a second believe there'd be any reason for giving out a loan like that.
One of the things that we made sure that the Livable City Initiative realized is that these loans are available to the public. And what we insisted is that the Livable City Initiative had a better publicized to make sure that our residents know that these are out there.
Right.
Now, I can't really speak to the history. That was obviously before I was around here in New Haven. But I'm going to keep a watch on that. And if that becomes an issue, then of course we're going to bring it up at the Board of Ethics, which meets the first Wednesday of the month in City Hall at noon sharp. And I highly encourage any resident of the city to
I'm still trying to figure out why we want people working for agencies that are giving out loans. Yeah, a third party might decide it, but it still has to be approved by the agency. So this person getting a loan works in an office with a person deciding whether or not to distribute that money. That person will then be inspecting. I don't know if this person an inspector.
As far as what I understand from the opinion is this person is a pretty low level clerk and doesn't have any interaction with the person who's overseeing this particular program.
Man, you know, I'm just going to speak because I'm not a Republican, I'm not a Democrat. I'm just going to give a personal editorial here.
Sure.
The very first basic reason I want there to be a Republican Party in New Haven is so that we don't have a repeat of the intrinsic and endemic unethical behavior and conflicts that we had coming to City Hall.
Absolutely.
I am so disappointed in that first decision you guys made.
Well, Paul, I encourage you to come to our meetings.
We'll be
Please.
at the next one, I promise.
You should. I mean, but then you wanted presence in the first place. You and others in New Haven wanted more than just the Democratic Party. We're starting this. And so, yes, we're taking baby steps by commissions, by boards, by fundraising. These are the things, the party platform, the website is up, obviously. I mean, these are the things that we're doing right now in our
Getting it started.
We've been doing it, Paul.
And you're here today on Dateline New Haven on WNHH New Haven's home for community radio at 102.5 FM, live streamed at newhavenindependent.org. We're talking to two people trying to do a heroic task in New Haven, which is to get the Republican Party back in action with candidates serving on boards and commissions and making our civic democracy vibrant. Their names are Jonathan Morton, a regular on this program, who is professor at Southern Connecticut State University, a member of our City Plan Commission, and the chairman, town chairman, poobah and boss of the New Haven Republican Party, and Tyler Kuhn, who's the new secretary and in charge of recruiting candidates and a member of the Ethics Commission, and who's a really good sport as he gets a hard time on Dateline New Haven. Tyler, who are you?
So, my name is Tyler Kuhn. I came to New Haven 2 years ago. I work for the Knights of Columbus downtown, and I probably should say, first off and foremost, I do work in the legal department, so none of the views are reflective of are necessarily the Knights of Columbus. They are purely my own. But since that time, I've gotten involved in the local city. As you mentioned, I'm on the board of ethics, also involved in the Downtown Planning Commission. And
What is the Downtown Planning Commission?
the Worcester Square downtown
Management team.
Management team.
You were there last night?
I was not there last
It
night.
was an interesting meeting last night. We got 3 stories on it. It was such an interesting meeting. Yeah.
What made it interesting?
Well, first of all, there's that building at Hamilton and Chapel, where actually the New Haven Independent
Yeah.
newspaper was in the
Yeah.
in the 80s. And they tried to pull a sleazy deal a few years ago where a guy got in the city loan on the condition that he never carried out, and then tried to flip the property and be able to keep all the proceeds at like a 800% profit and only give the city some of it. So that got killed. So now he's back. Now that the market's improved, he's getting his own financing, and the building's vacant. It has some history to it. He's going to put 23 apartments in, and people are pretty psyched about that.
Mhm.
There was the first public look at a new zoning rewrite that would create a whole new category that would put new steps in place before Yale University could build anything, and neighbors just zinged it.
Yeah.
And then also there was discussion about, there was one other, how to spend neighborhood improvement grants. So it's interesting, we're doing neighborhood-based budgeting in New Haven, where and other cities have tried this, to give $10,000 to every neighborhood through their management team, say how are you going to spend it. So last night they decided they're going to spend it on traffic calming in Worcester Square. I love that management team. You guys are so crisp. You always keep to an hour schedule. You have so much good information that comes in, so much good debate. It's one of the best run meetings I think
really
I've
is.
seen.
Because, I'm involved in the Hill South, and I have to mention, it really is. And of course, our predecessor, Paul Filipino, was very involved with the committee. He was a former chairman of that management
That's right.
team. And,
So tell me a little more about yourself. So where'd you come from?
Well, I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio,
Mhm.
But I went to school in New Hampshire at Dartmouth College. I studied history and government, and I came down here to work in the legal department of the Knights of Columbus, and I'm thinking about attending law school pretty soon.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So where are you going to go to law school?
To be determined.
All right, please stay close to the mic. And how old are you, Tyler?
I'm 25 years old.
Well, it's really nice to have you in New Haven. I wish you luck in all your efforts and
It really is
in
nice city.
citizenship. So what's the pitch you and Jonathan are giving when you recruit candidates? Why do you tell them they should run for the Republican Party? First of all, do you want a Bernie Sanders flaming liberal to run for you, or are you looking for people who have not a litmus test, but you look for some kind of basic values or a platform to adhere to? You do have a platform on your site.
we want people who are already involved and have a vested interest in the community that they're going to be serving. And that's why we would hope that among the candidates and people who are interested, they're already doing that. They're engaged locally. As we were already saying, the management team, the boards, the commissions, something that actually demonstrates that they are already involved. I think that's really a primary interest. If they're able to, and we highly suggest it for them to attend meetings regularly with the committee, because we meet monthly, every second Thursday at 7 p.m. down there at 200 Orange Street. I would also say that, if they've been involved in any fundraising activities in terms of donating, that's very helpful, whether it's for our committee, the state party, whatever it is that demonstrates that they have been involved and active with the political party locally or statewide.
And how do people get involved? How they just come to these meetings?
Absolutely.
So you
Come to the
it's
meetings.
every third Tuesday?
It's every second Thursday.
200 Orange Street?
Yep, 200 Orange Street at 7 p.m.
I'm sorry, Tuesday you said?
Thursday.
Thursday.
Yeah.
At 6 p.m.?
No, 7 p.m.
I got every fact wrong. Okay.
You
200
look
Orange
like my
Street
freshman
every...
year, Paul. And this is final season, so perfect timing.
So you can't
I
let me
won't
get
fail
a
you.
gentleman's seat?
Oh,
I
sure.
paid the tuition, man. Come on. I promised to vote Republican in some election sometime in my life and give me a pass.
And that's the starting point. That's the starting point.
I
That's
did
the
vote for
starting
Johnny
point.
Anderson in 1980.
There you go. Hey,
Primary.
you can get in the class now. But we, and we have all this
Wanna run
information there.
folders?
But there you go.
Never.
But we have all the information up on the website, at newhavenrepublicans.com. So we at least already have that. And so, and if they have an interest in terms of obviously what's up there on our party platform online.
Now, you have some issues on your platform that are an alternative
Mhm.
to what the Democrats' policy has been.
Mhm.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe you're looking for someone who's 100% for every position, right? anywhere the Democrats are.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Tyler, talk about that.
Politics is a little bit like real estate. You know, your realtor is always going to tell you you're only going to get about 80% of what you want, and 20% is going to be extra. We're going to looking for somebody who believes the general core of what we believe.
And what is that?
So it's a little bit comes down to philosophy, and the basic philosophy differences between the two parties. One believes in a stronger, more expansive government to correct society's ills, and one believes in personal autonomy and personal freedom. We want, obviously, people who are going to be in the latter. I think you saw a great example of that last night. I mean, you have a small, localized community people who are given the money from the larger government and decided to dish that out how they see fit. This is a local town group of ordinary citizens who got to decide that. Those are the kind of people that we're going to be looking for.
So you like that the Democrats did that, though? That was Democrats who came up with neighborhood-based budgeting in
Well,
Chicago and here in New Haven.
The Democrats are in power here in the city, so if they made the call on that.
So if you like an idea, it doesn't have to be a Democrat or Republican idea.
No. We're all Americans first. I think that's first and foremost something we need to keep in mind.
That's
especially
one
now.
reason people have embraced Jonathan in New Haven, including Democrats, is they feel that he has a core set of principles that might be different from theirs, but it's not always who wins on every issue
Right.
because of whose party it is, but that there's going to be an environment in New Haven where we all have a common goal of
Right.
good policy and you know.
And a genuine concern for
I've
the
heard a
community.
lot about that, about the new
Absolutely.
Republican Party from the Democrats. It's like, now, if you ever get to the point where you can maybe beat them, maybe it'll get nastier. But at this point, what I'm hearing, is so welcome to have, under our charter and our rules, you have to have Republicans on
Right.
committees. And sometimes you have to resort to getting people to change their party
Well,
affiliation.
well,
So few of
it's
them to
respect.
qualify.
And I have to tell you, Paul, even in my commission meetings, they can tell when I have my Republican interests there, especially with some of these projects. And I will tell you, even Alderman Merchant, among others, Merchant and others will be like, okay, clearly, Jonathan Ward's taking a stand on something.
And
so
also, a lot of
for business
stands are
and that
just
kind
from
of thing.
being on inside and outside. I mean, local
Absolutely.
issues do not conform to always to conservative liberal views, but yet you come to a certain point of view. Even nationally, what's happening on the scene, the fact that so many people chose in the primaries last year between going Republican for Donald Trump or Democrat for Bernie Sanders, who have such different ideas about so many things, shows how issues like trade,
Right.
for instance, and
Right.
corporate lobbying
Sure.
cut across those issues. Let me ask you some specifics. So your platform, for instance, is against the city sanctuary city designation. You're against the kind of Board of Alderman majority's efforts to get tougher on Yale,
Mhm.
and maybe tougher is a biased way of putting it, to put more scrutiny and steps that have to be taken before Yale building projects can be developed. You've been against efforts to increase taxation of Yale. Does that include Yale New Haven Hospital, what the
Yes.
state doing now?
That's
So you're
our
against that
stance.
too. So is it fair to say that those are some good examples of where the Republican Party offers an alternative, and that, Tyler, you're saying you don't have to agree with every one of those, but that's
Mhm.
sort of generally where you're coming from?
Yeah, and I actually also want to add one more thing. I think the budget is really going to become a bigger and bigger issue.
No question.
Absolutely.
Because as we know, the governor's thinking about how much money that he's going to be able to give to local communities like New Haven. Given the budget situation of Connecticut, I'm not sure they're going to be able to be in a position to give what they promise. But be that as it may, here in the city right now, as far as our budget goes, as you know, Paul, you talked about it on your show yesterday, the city has no rainy day fund. And we as Republicans, we're concerned about that. We're concerned about the city living within its means so that if situations like what could happen from Hartford happens, we're going to be in a situation where we're going to be fiscally responsible and able to meet those things.
We're also going to remind people that listen to Dateline New Haven on WNHH New Haven's home for community radio, 102.5 FM, and live streamed at newhavenindependent.org. We are speaking today with two of the prime movers of the revival of the Republican Party in New Haven, Town Chair Jonathan Morton, Secretary and Candidate Recruitment Czar, Tyler
I like
Kuhn.
that title.
So
Yeah,
Tyler, I
Czar.
think that all parties agree that New Haven's not getting $31 million in added state aid this year that we were counting on when we did our budget originally. We had a proposed budget that we have to approve in the next week or two. I think it's going to be approved with an asterisk, meaning we're coming back in a few weeks when we find out what we actually get from the state. To be fair to the Harp administration, both the governor and legislative leaders were telling her back in February that's a safe number. You're going to get $31 million more.
Right.
Since then, projection after projection has come in that shows our tax revenues, especially income tax revenues, plummeting. On top of all these inherited burdens with the pensions that came both from Republican and Democrat administrations in the
That's
back.
right.
And so as a result, no one believes we're getting $31 million, which means that we don't know how much we're going to get. So in dealing with that, Tyler and Jonathan, what should the city do? If realistically, we're not going to be getting as much state money, we don't have a rainy day fund, I think everyone agrees we need to put money in the rainy day fund, but that means we either got to raise taxes, which I know will send everyone running out of the room, or cut so drastically, and we've cut to the bone
Mhm.
in the Parks Department,
Right.
in Public Works. We've learned to do a lot more with a lot less over the last 10 years. How would you solve this?
Well, one of the things is that, and we certainly stress this in our platform, is that we have to find ways of attracting and, at least attracting and keeping new businesses and coming here. And, one of the things I'm very much involved with and interested in is creating more opportunities for restaurants, tourist industry, that kind of thing here in New Haven. Clearly, we're seeing more places opening up, like a couple more breweries now in East Rock, for
Right, the
example.
market's real now.
Absolutely, it's
For
here. The
market
interest
rate
for
housing
development
and-
here is amazing, Paul. You know this. The interest in development, especially around downtown, for residential housing, for apartments, even condominiums. We need to get more of this on the books. And so I would say there's got to be a way of bringing in more and new revenue taking place now. And so I think that should be the primary interest. Economic development, I know they're busy at City Hall.
Now, nobody disagrees with that.
Right.
But you will disagree on the fine points, how
But
you
the-
make that happen.
but the
and how you make it
barriers-
benefit the city.
The barriers are immense from the developers end and investors
Tell me
end.
some barriers.
Well, sometimes there's red tape that they have to go through all these commissions, they have to get all these approvals. It takes a longer
So do you want
time
to put
than it should.
yourself out of business, not have a city plan commission?
No, not at all. If anything, we should find a better way of streamlining the process for developers and investors to
And
come
how
back
did you do that? To say that we promised to do it in a month?
I'm not saying it's got to be a certain fixed time, but I think anything to make things go smoothly for developers and investors.
Right, and
in
again, and I think
Haven.
people would agree with that, Jonathan. So how do you give me some specifics? How do you show me a barrier you saw and a way it could have been fixed?
Well, I think if I may interrupt
Please.
for a moment. So with any kind of government, anything from federal, state, local government, the devil is always going to be in the details, right? So right now we're in a position where it's basically one party that's reviewing our city's budget, our city's expenditures. I think a part of the benefit of having the Republican Party there is there's going to be a different eye there, a different review, and really kind of getting down to brass tacks is what actually are we spending on our
Right, and no one could disagree with that.
Mhm.
Well, if they're not completely partisan. But what about the details? Give me some details. Give me an example of some
the
burden
parking
you sort of.
the parking situation.
Okay,
I mean,
tell me about
and I know that that's a big hot button issue. It's going to become even a bigger issue now with the Board of Alders and what's happening with that recently, right? By putting on an additional burden on a developer like that, by demanding a certain number of spaces and requirements that are going to
They're
be
not
added on like
demanding
that.
spaces, they're demanding that they go through an extra review of an overall parking plan. So you're saying that's not necessary.
It's excessive.
But a lot of people actually, the
government.
reigning Democrats do believe we should have fewer parking spaces, which helps developers. We're actually changing our zoning code, as you know, so that you don't have to have quite as many parking spaces because we thought development doesn't have to be geared towards so much the car.
But that's been long overdue.
Yeah, so you embrace
And
that.
absolutely, and
But
do
you don't
more
embrace the
initiatives.
extra overall parking plan that's put in. Basically, it's geared toward Yale and Yale and Haven.
Absolutely, and they're
Why
doing
not?
this on purpose because the unions are playing, their hand this way.
Let's tell people what
having
that
a
is.
choke on
Last
that.
year, they had a new process called overall
Mhm.
parking plan that if it's a certain kind of project, which is largely tailored to what Yale and Haven or Yale would do, the Board of Alders has to have a separate plan approved that shows how it's going to impact parking, even if it's not a big new project that changes the use. And we saw that with the Gibbs Biology Laboratory Tower on Whitney Avenue, got held up for 6 months based on this process. Now, the Board of Alders now have a new proposal that, and it's the Unite Here majority, the union there that is based at Yale, supports that majority, which is that anything Yale does, including other colleges, but it's really Yale, anything they build in town, they're going to have to get a special level of approval, not just on parking, but other kinds of community benefits, including local hiring, from the Board of Alders.
Right.
So that adds another layer. They say they made it happen quicker. They say it has to happen within 35 days. But in any case, there's a lot of debate about it. It might not happen. Their argument, Jonathan and Tyler, is that people do embrace development, but that it should benefit the public. And why shouldn't the public have a say? Other cities have actual college zones, so colleges could expand
I know.
only in certain
Right.
area. We're leaving it wide open, saying you can go anywhere. But when you do it, what's wrong with having people who are elected by neighborhood people have some say in extra review to make sure it benefits them?
Actually, I'm not against that at all. It's more the fact that it's another example of how they like to delay things here in town. And let's admit it, the Board of Alders, how many people are involved with the union there?
Well, there's
16 out of 30?
over 20 have been supported.
It's a
by
good
the
number of
Unite Here.
people. They love to choke anything that's possible here for that kind of development. And that's a
Why would
problematic
they
thing.
love to choke things? I mean, is that a
For
fair?
control. Anything that they can at least deem possible, and saying that we're fighting for this cause of this issue, including in the demonstration there at Yale right now, they will do and use and have leverage over. And that's what I think a lot of people in New Haven fear and concerned with, is the activism of the unions and how they love to at least have a chokehold on what could be done and what can't be done.
For what
And
end?
by the way,
What if
by the
they
way, for the
argue?
record, it's not like they're not effective. They are. But if
So
anything,
their
they're too
argument,
effective.
their
They're
argument,
too powerful.
their argument is that what's wrong with having a counterbalance to power? So why should Yale be all powerful? Why should they have to answer?
Why should the
Does
unions
it-
be all powerful in terms of
Do the
preventing
unions
things like
have more
this?
power than Yale?
I would-
$26 billion endowed university.
They clearly have a way of preventing things from getting done and politicizing causes very effectively. And
And
unfortunately, that's
question.
dominating the board of elected.
What about
Board of
Yale?
Alders
Though?
right
What
now.
about Yale last year when they were messing with their laboratory? Yale said, "Okay, we'll delay our annual payment to the city and
That's a
throw
good
the bond
example.
rating in the toilet." So Yale ended up winning that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
absolutely. You know, I think a part
So I don't have tears for either side. I think they're
Mm.
both pretty savvy and pretty powerful, and that it's best not to have either one control it.
But Paul, and you're right. There are obviously some concerns that we need to think about, but we also have to remember Yale is a very key partner in the city. I mean, without Yale, we would be in a much worse kind of fiscal position than we are. In fact, I think a lot of the development we're seeing downtown is because of the investment that Yale has made into our community.
Now, or could you argue that Yale is like the weather? It's here. So on the one hand, they get tax breaks that we, by being a nonprofit, that means we don't get a lot of tax revenue. But on the other hand, they do more, and they're more impervious to the vicissitudes of the market. So they'll continue developing, and even if we don't get 100% of the tax revenue, we get a lot more activity and business than we otherwise would get because they're here.
Exactly. I mean, we don't get tax.
So it doesn't mean good guys or bad guys. It means they're here.
Hold on. I mean, we don't get tax revenue on the academic buildings. That's true. Anything related to their academic mission. However, they put in significant resources downtown. They're developing businesses, any kind of private business that they own or have rents, that is paid for by the taxes. And like you said, the people who work at Yale, the people who study there, they're here in this town. They're paying taxes.
Right, they're here, but they're not going to leave, right? They're not going to. It's not like where you were in Cleveland, where the company could just leave town.
Or GE for that matter.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, but that's another whole discussion. Okay.
But you're right. However, that doesn't mean we have to be antagonistic toward them. It should be a partnership. It shouldn't be a one-way partnership. I agree with that.
And again,
It should be a
actually, I'm giving you devil's advocate question because I honestly, deep in my heart, am not on the side of this,
Yeah, no, I
including the zoning
understand.
proposal. But I think there are fair arguments on both sides, and one of it is that you need to check the big corporations' power, and they are the big corporation in town, and that you're never going to have more power than they do, and that's important. They don't just control everything and roll over you.
But I think it's also worth saying that there was a correlation between New Haven's development in the 80s and 90s and Yale's involvement in that development.
No
so again,
question.
they're-
90s and aughts,
Yeah.
really, when they under Rick Levin, when he came in and the
Correct.
corporation made a stop. Again, that was self-interested. That was not good guys or bad guys. Christine Prince, their student, was murdered on Hillhouse Avenue.
Yep.
Became a national story.
Christian Prince on Hill House
Yeah.
Avenue as well.
That's what I mentioned. That's the one I meant.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And then overall, they were not attracting as many professors and students as Princeton or Stanford. They said we have to stop being head in the sand. We got to be a partner with the city.
The president refused to live downtown, as you may know.
So we are in better days,
Here we are.
and we are on WNHH Radio, your home for community radio, 103.5 FM live stream to New Haven Independent. Our guest today in Dateline New Haven, Tyler Kuhn and Jonathan Wharton. So let me ask you about the city budget. Overall, it sounds like, and tell me if this is unfair portrayal, your overall point about the city budget is that we have to make it easier to tap this great moment we have where people want to invest in New Haven, make it easier, more streamlined process to do business, build our tax base. In the meantime, guys, you guys are out of power. If you were in power, what would you do about the fact that we're not going to be seeing this $31 million from the state? You don't want to raise taxes. We're not going to have this $30 million increased aid on which our new budget depended. We don't have a rainy day fund. Everyone agrees, especially people who do our bond rating, that we need to have money in the rainy day fund. What would you specifically do now? If you had to make that tough choice, rather than have the luxury of being outside talking about long-term we need to fix, which is very important and valid points, what would you do in the next month to put out a budget and deal with this gap? It's a huge gap.
It is a big gap. And I know there are all kinds of options on the table. And our hope is that we would not see an increase in the mill rate, for example.
You're also saying, Jonathan, that you would not agree with the governor's proposal to allow the city to start levying property tax or similar
Correct.
to that,
Or
or similar to that on the hospital.
Yeah,
The
on the
hospital's
hospital.
real estate.
Correct.
The governor says, look, they own tons of real estate. They make tons of profits, which are excess revenues, even though not for profit. They can afford to pay property tax like everyone else. And plus, the state has promised to make them whole. That any kind of increased local levying on property tax will be made up for by increased either Medicaid funding or the backup from state finances. The hospitals don't like it because they say you made us the same promise when you had the provider tax, which was a new tax that now has Yale paying $200 million a year in taxes, and that the state did not make whole. Their other argument is that they're actually a not-for-profit. Those aren't profits. That goes money that goes back into healthcare, and they're in fact a major employer, so you don't want to cripple them.
That's
Tony
our
Harp, our mayor, has gone back and forth. This first, she was totally sympathetic to the hospitals. Then she said we have no choice. The situation is so dire in the state. The only way they can afford to keep our aid coming rather than cutting it, because if this doesn't happen, the latest figures the governor's budget show not only not a $31 million increase, but actually a $12 million decrease. So that the only option is to have this property tax and trust that the state is going to make it whole, because we live in an imperfect world, imperfect choices. If you're not for that hospital property tax, Jonathan, and you're not for raising taxes, how in the world would you, if you were the mayor right now, plug that gap?
Look, there's a lot of difficult decisions to be made here, and I don't know whether it's one of these options of where you consider ending the overtime that you see taking place so often among a lot of public safety people, employees, or whether you address a school budget or other areas we can make additional cuts. There are other areas that they'd have to consider, but the idea of going after nonprofits like the hospital, the university, that's
Okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate because I'm not on either side of that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't do that overtime often, then you have to hire more cops and firefighters, which we are doing.
Yep.
It's a long process. We've been working hard on it. We've hired a lot of new firefighters and cops. Until we do that, are you going to leave streets unpoliced?
No.
Are you going to
You can't do
violate
that.
terms of union contracts with the firefighters? How many people have to work on shift, whether or not we like those terms? So it's easy to say, and it's a valid point to say, we got to keep overtime in check. In fact, there's a freeze right now on city spending, except for public safety overtime. Would you do something different from that?
You know, I think as Republicans, we generally agree public safety is probably the number one thing that the government provides us. It keeps us safe, it keeps us well, and all that. You know, I was listening to your show yesterday. You were talking with Marcus Paca, and he mentioned something I thought really interesting. And tell me if I'm wrong, but I think the city hired like a food nutrition director or something like that, somebody to basically look at what we're eating and how we're eating in New Haven. Now, as important as that may be, if we're going to a period where budgets are going to be lean, budgets are going to be tight, I don't know if the city should be really
right. So that could save us $125,000, which in fact wasn't coming from the taxpayers; it was coming from an outside separate grant.
But I guess what the point is, that's only the one position that I know about. If you're in direct government and you're seeing what we're spending on and who we're spending on, I'm sure there are other examples like that. And just having a real review of the budget, I think, would be a major step forward. And I'm pretty sure we would be able to find areas where we could save money over the long run.
All right. So that's what we're doing. How about at the state? What do you guys do? I mean, that's a genuine problem. We have a high dependence on high income earners in Fairfield County. 25 states have plummeting revenues this year. This isn't unique to Connecticut.
Yeah.
Some people say that, in fact, we can still tax more of the highest income group from 6.39 to 6.99% on it comes over $500,000 or $1 million, because there's no evidence that that's what makes them flee. There are other issues. And other people say, or that we need tolls or tax marijuana, that we have to find new revenues. Other people say we just got to cut, maybe unilaterally cut labor costs. I don't know how that can be done, but what would you guys do? Because as Jonathan always points out, part of being a city Republican Party is tackling state as well as city issues, because they're intertwined, and our local party has a lot of say. Our local representatives have a lot of say in what happens at the state and half of our budget.
You know, I think we're kind of getting into a dangerous cycle here. So we need more revenue, therefore we tax. Therefore, we're going to have less revenue if revenue doesn't expand, if there's not more economic creation, if there's not more jobs and more people coming to Connecticut, then we lose revenue, so then we tax more. And I think we're kind of getting into that dangerous cycle here in Connecticut. I think people, and this is true with both parties, I will say that, and Paul, you do point that out. One of the biggest mistakes I think we made as a state was introducing, the income tax in the early 90s under Lowell Weicker. This state used to be as economically strong as our friends up in New Hampshire. And part of the reason why they're as strong as they are, they have a similar situation to us.
But of course, it was John Rowland, the Republican, who made the deal with the ballooning payments for the pensions so that he could close a bunch of budgets for a bunch of years. And that's no different from what Democrats do. This is not an anti-Republican thing. I bring that up to say that it's a bipartisan reality of politics. So we're really paying more, I would argue, for John Rowland's deals with the unions for pensions that ballooned and are now crushing us than we are for the income tax. Though you give sense to your argument, what happened with income taxes became more and more progressive, dependent on high earners. It actually allowed us to do a lot for years that we no longer can do because of what you're talking about when the revenue streams no longer come in. And for whatever reasons, those quarterly payers who are paying on investment earnings are just dropping every 3 months and creating us now a $5 billion deficit over 2 years.
Yeah.
So
No, my thing is that we had to find a better way of attracting, again, businesses and people to stay here in Connecticut, and we're getting slammed here as a state. It is probably one of the most unfortunate things I've seen and experienced since coming back to Connecticut 3 years ago. The state government is not making it attractive for businesses to remain here, let alone start here and thrive here. And so there's got to be a better way of dealing with this. That's why I'm fascinated with this gubernatorial race. I'm sure for next year you're
and we've
following a
already
lot
had
of
the
that,
candidates
Paul.
in it. And my prediction, and at this point, and again, this has nothing to do with how I vote or what I want. I believe it's going to be a strong Republican
Absolutely.
next year, and but that if you guys don't have candidates in place, you're not going to be able to ride that wave.
We are following everything related to this gubernatorial race.
At least
It's
in the
amazing.
gubernatorial, they seem to be coming out of the woodwork.
A lot of people.
I'm talking about state candidates from the
State
state.
candidates. Okay.
Oh, from New Haven, no. But at least as a region here, I mean, I'm just in Connecticut in general. I mean, I'm hearing something like 12 names at least, if not more, who among the Republican side. That doesn't include obviously the 8 or
You
10
guys have any
Democrats.
candidates that you're liking at this point? You'd like to see run for governor? You want to see them as Clarities? You want to get
There's been a lot of talk about that.
Mark Boughton was on radio here last week.
Len Fasano could be, an interesting.
Do you see Len on the stump though? Len's a great guy. Everybody loves Len, and he works very well with
Sure.
people. Do you see him stumping statewide in the commercials and the big debates?
Lately,
Maybe I'm wrong.
I went to a breakfast with the Chambers. He certainly sounded like a candidate. I mean, the way he
Yeah.
was talking back in
He's
January.
got a good personal retail touch.
He does, and
we don't know
and
how
he's
these
a policy
guys.
guy.
Boughton seems to have a real kind of
Presence.
I don't know if you saw Harry when he came in. He seems to have that kind of smooth.
He's got the presence, and
Sell
this will be
the toothpaste.
his third time trying to run, and he's got that committee together. He's been very involved on Twitter. I mean,
Themis Clarities, I believe, has potential for the independents.
Mhm.
I think she knows how to connect with sort of that independent.
people in the valley would
voter.
likely
Yeah.
show up anyway
Yeah.
for that,
Okay.
because she does have that kind of ground game already.
Someone we're also looking at, maybe not necessarily at the gubernatorial level, but at the state secretary of state or state treasurer, is also our good friend Erin Stewart.
Yes,
Britain.
right.
She's one of the youngest mayors.
Oh,
of
that's
that
true.
large
She's an up
city.
and comer. What, she was like 31 when she came there, or in her 20s?
No,
right?
she's in her 20s still.
Yeah.
She's 29, I think.
She's
right
definitely
now,
going to be
yeah.
on that ticket right now if she wants to be.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, I'm a bit of an idealist. I root for the Cleveland Browns, so it comes with the territory. But I'm still hoping that Joe Scarborough might kind of jump in too.
You got to look at that guy. First, if you're Joe Scarborough,
Yeah.
first of all, you're about to get married.
Yep.
So do you want to spend?
By the way.
Do you want to spend time with Brzezinski, or do you want to spend time with Looney and Fasano and the Capitol Press Corps for the next 4 years? Second of all, he just got, I forget how many million, this huge new contract to and have this platform for a national show. Does he really want to take over a state that has horrible options? No matter what you do, you're going to be hurting people with mental retardation. You're going to be unable to accomplish any kind of ambitious new projects you'd like to do to help people. It's basically just fixing old mistakes and limiting the damage. You really think he'd want to go off to Harvard for that?
Honestly, Paul, I think he's aching to get back into the fray. And as you may know, Mika Brzezinski got her start in Hartford, so she's she's familiar to the state. I think she'd be an excellent first lady. He has a kind of a rare appeal.
This guy wants to all over the world. Come on, you really think he wants to then be up at Harvard?
I,
I don't want to be in Harvard.
well, I don't know what his future plans are, but if he wants to be taken seriously in Washington, which I think he'll eventually want to, he's going to need a starting platform. And I think Connecticut would be a great opportunity for him. I think he's one of the few candidates who can unite people down in Fairfield and up in the northern parts of the state, because that has historically been tough for us to do. We had Tom Foley try to do it twice, came close, but lost. So we're going to need somebody who can be able to appeal to both crowds.
There's no question that he'd have the name.
But-
population, he'd have the
Yeah.
brand.
But Chairman Romano was very excited about this race. I mean, we couldn't stop talking to him last week. He's really excited about all these candidates coming out. He wants serious debates taking place. I mean, they're ready for a good discussion on some of these issues, and
So
we're
if you're a
excited.
Republican, it's a time to be excited about political prospects in Connecticut. You're also citizens in the United States.
Mhm.
You have the Congress and you have the White House,
Mhm.
and everything is a mess. Every day there's so much drama and so many big mistakes that the whole world is fretting about. You can't even keep track of them because there are so many. Just in the last week alone, with finding the FBI director and the revelations about asking the president trying to squash an investigation to one of his aides.
We don't know for that for sure. So for one thing, the memo hasn't been verified. And you're right.
You're talking about the memo from James Comey,
The
in which he
leak, yeah.
said that,
Possibly from James Comey. We don't know. He hasn't verified that came from him yet, or that he signed off on that.
but he obviously was the guy who leaked it, but we don't know that for a fact.
We don't know that for a fact yet.
Comey's revenge is just beginning.
But Jason Chaffetz, the Republican
Yes.
Oversight Committee down in the House, he has subpoenaed those documents, or he's moving towards subpoenaed. So I think that's all going to come out to light. It could be nothing. It could be something.
Paul, it's a process. I mean, and I was a former congressional aide. You know that there's a process to all this. You can have all the media say what they want to say and hype it up, but in reality,
especially the thing about the
processes.
secrets that were revealed, that was based on two sources, one of whom couldn't have been in the room, who's not in the administration, the other person probably wasn't in the room. Although we do know now that the NSA staff, for whatever reasons, concluded that it was a big problem because they immediately started contacting people around the world and trying to do damage control. Jonathan was not a supporter of Donald Trump. Were you a supporter of Donald Trump? Come on, be honest here. You're in New Haven.
I think he brought some really interesting views to the forefront.
Oh, sounds like you didn't vote for him. That's the first sentence of someone who didn't vote for Donald Trump.
I supported the Republican ticket. That's what I'm going to say.
Come on, man. You're supposed to bring openness to government. First you let LCI get corrupt again. I mean, come on. Tell me at least. Tell me who you voted for.
I thought that I was very happy when he won. I supported Donald Trump in the election, and I supported him because I thought he brought interesting issues to the forefront. He talked about people that are generally been left behind. They've been left behind by the coast. They've been left behind by the media. They've been left behind by big money. Big money in both parties.
You mean like Goldman Sachs with all the people he hired to run his administration now?
He needs the best people. Some of the best people come from Goldman.
So the best people were responsible for what you thought we should revolt against.
I have nothing against Goldman Sachs personally. I think they have a certain expertise that they bring into the field, but he's also bringing in people who might not.
That's actually an argument I thought was in favor of Rex Tillerson. I never thought it was so bad it came from Mobile Exxon, but in fact, if they come in to do a public service mission, someone who actually knows how things work, including dealing with foreign leaders, can potentially produce the most good. We have to see how they do.
I mean, he had more employees at ExxonMobil than the State Department does,
Yeah.
so he has experience running big. James Mattis is another great example of somebody who I don't think the mainstream would have thought about prior to John.
Yeah, of course, you're bringing up all the appointees.
Or McMaster, even McMaster.
You're not bringing up Michael Flynn. You're not bringing up the guy who was part of the Nazi group who had to leave. I already forgot his name.
Look, each administration, Paul, each administration has their own extremes.
Yeah.
Each administration has their own extremes.
I mean, you remember from the early '90s, Bill Clinton had to go through 3 attorney generals before he was able to settle on one.
Right.
Yeah, but that was horrible betting. I mean, what they did to Lonnie Lanier was sick.
But
That was letting Glenn Beck run the government.
But I guess what the point was.
I don't think Glenn Van Jones, but
any new administration is going to have their hiccups. And to his credit, I think when he realized that Michael Flynn was going to be a situation, he was gone.
Well, that was after he didn't follow the advice.
After he lied to the vice president. Yeah.
Okay.
So he was gone.
Okay. I'm actually with you on saying that people have a hard time distinguishing what Donald Trump actually did and what people who are freaked out about Donald Trump are assuming he did, which he may or may not have. For instance, I've never been convinced that anything actually improper happened with Russia. I'm fully convinced that investigation needs to be serious and take place. And when they fired the FBI director, I think it makes you doubly think, was he interfering with this? But I still haven't seen any evidence that Trump people were actually doing anything in that election that was improper. They might have, but I think it's all assumption.
And you know what the big crux of it is? So they're really concerned about how he might have helped the WikiLeaks guy release the emails, but no one's challenging the veracity of the emails. Nobody's saying the campaign chairman didn't say that. Nobody is saying.
But your administration now, Trump administration, is talking about how terrible leaks are. Harry Gross, the biggest defender, bravest man in New Haven, always says we got to worry about these terrible leaks. Donald Trump championed the WikiLeaks leaks. He publicly said, please release more of it.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you now saying that leaks are a problem if we loved them on the campaign trail when they went against Democrats? And Harry, you can weigh in on this.
Thank you.
No, Todd, I didn't mean to shut you up. What were you saying?
No, well, my thing is, you're looking at it again from the other side of the fence. Now you guys are championing leaks.
I'm not
right?
me guys. I
guys,
actually thought that
Democrats.
WikiLeaks was dangerous, and
It was dangerous,
that the
but
NSA
now you're
release was a
championing
problem.
the leaks from the FBI.
I didn't champion.
from the
No. I'm
NSA.
not championing anything.
Yeah, but the Democrats get giddy over it. They say they
I'm
don't
not the
champion it,
Democrats, Harry.
but then they do a little Super Bowl,
No,
touchdown
there is a
dance.
tradition of people in government who feel like terrible things are happening,
Yeah,
leaking
but
things, and we
but
need
these
that.
leaks-
If we don't have that, that's the
these
difference between us and
leaks-
totalitarian governments where you get killed for releasing the information.
These
in
leaks
certain
are incredible.
countries.
And then let's also talk about James Comey's integrity here. If this
No, he has
memo
no
is for
integrity.
real, if this memo is for real, and he felt that Donald Trump was interfering with the investigation, why does he wait till he's fired? All he is a disgruntled employee.
Harry,
That's
deep,
all he is.
Harry, deep down, just between us and our listeners, we won't tell anybody else.
Okay.
As a Donald Trump defender, has anything happened this week that made you feel like maybe there's a
Anything?
problem?
I've been saying for a while that Donald should shut up.
Not just shut up. Do you think like there might anything
even
how we're handling intelligence in our country. Do you think there might be a slight problem there?
No, because
Do you think that maybe Mitch McConnell is right, that maybe we do have some kind of problem?
Obama
developing
did
there?
the same thing, and people
Oh,
just
that's a
shrugged
great
it off.
thing.
Susan
Oh,
Collins
as
said
soon
the
as you
same
bring us
thing. Susan
Obama.
Collins said the same thing.
As
Yeah,
soon as you bring up
Senator,
Obama,
it's
means you have
that-
no case.
Well, you used to bring up Bush, so come on, we're playing by your rules. Your rules.
I didn't have any rules. I just wondering if you felt deep down that there might be any problem.
You want to run for Alder?
Tyler Kuhn, any problem?
I-
And there it
he's
is.
recruiting.
Run for Alder. The
He's
Republican
recruiting.
Party is back, folks. Tyler Kuhn and Jonathan Wharton have joined us today in Dateline New Haven. Thanks so much for joining
you,
us.
Paul.
Thank you for having us, Paul.
Whether or not people agree with you on an issue, we're all rooting for you for making a strong second party in New Haven again. They're meeting, and I'm going to get this right for the first time today, the second Thursday of every month, 7 p.m.,
Yes.
200 Orange Street Basement.
It's a good time. Come on by.
The Republican Town Committee meets, and they're looking for people to run for office, and they claim that there are going to be some human beings running as Republicans for office this election year. Tyler Kuhn, a fresh face in New Haven politics. So glad to meet you and hear about you today
Nice to meet you,
as
Paul.
the Secretary and Candidate Recruitment Czar for the City Republican Party, and Chairman Mao of the Republican Party, Town Chairman Jonathan Wharton. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you.
And thanks for joining us on Dateline New Haven. Thanks to Yale New Haven Hospital for providing support for today's program. We're going to take it out with the Afro-Semitic Experience performing I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free from the group CD, A Plea for Peace. Now, we all know what it's like to be free. You just got to remember to book our flight. Book your flight with us all day and all night long here at WNHH, New Haven's home for community radio.